Watch collecting can be an expensive hobby, but it doesn't have to be. Today, I'm going to show you my top 3 watches that are under $1,000 and what I look for in a watch at that price point, because obviously it's very different than a much more expensive watch. At this price point, you aren't getting in-house movements, so they're purchasing a third-party movement from a movement manufacturer. They then take these movements and fit them into their own cases. Now, a lot of enthusiasts really look down on this. They are only looking for an in-house movement, and I get it, but there's no possible way to make watches at this price point without using a third-party manufacturer. And there are actually some really good third-party manufacturers. They create really reliable and durable movements. They aren't as pretty or hand-finished as any of the others, and they're often not as accurate. But when you're buying a watch at this price point, you aren't really too worried about the accuracy. If it loses or gains 20 seconds a day, that's okay. That's not why you're buying the watch. Now, amongst these third-party movement manufacturers, there are a couple that you should look out for that are more reliable and more reputable than others. Some of these good brands are Sellita, Etta, Miyota, Seiko, and La Jouperet, just to name a few. Now, let's get into the watches. My first pick is from a brand called Unimatic, and I really like their sort of military-inspired designs and their unique bezels. They sort of offer a different design than you see from most other watch brands. And this is the second thing that I look for when I'm shopping for watches in this price range. Oftentimes, brands in this range just try to make a more affordable version of an iconic design, whether that's a cheaper Royal Oak or a cheaper Submariner. But I want something that's unique, so I look for brands that actually have their own identity and their own design language and are coming up with watches that are unique. And this is where Unimatic sticks out for me. The brand was founded in 2015 by 2 industrial engineers who wanted to reimagine historic watches through a modern lens, and I think they've done a really good job of that. My watch of choice from their lineup is currently the U1. It's the Classic, it's their first one, and I think it exemplifies what I really like about Unimatic. It's got this simple black aluminum bezel insert with a clean layout, lots of lume, and these simple ladder hands. It's powered by the workhorse Seiko NH35A, which is a great mass-produced movement that's reliable and durable for everyday wear and tear. Now, the stainless steel case measures 40 millimeters in diameter, and the bezel measures 41.5 millimeters in diameter, so it's got a little bit of overhang, and that's quite a big case, but pretty standard for a dive watch. Personally, I would love to see it in 38 or 39 millimeters, but that's just my preference. I like a little bit smaller. It comes on a black NATO standard, and you have lots of different options. You can get a metal bracelet, and you can also get what I personally like, which is the rubber strap, and all of these swap out quite easily, so you can sort of change up this watch however you want pretty easily. Now, Unimatic offer a lot of limited edition runs, and they often use the base models as inspiration, so you can get this U1 in different colorways, like this brown version that they have right now that I really like. And I don't usually like faux patina, which is what they try to do with the brown sometimes, but with the brown dial and the matching brown leather strap, I think they look really good together. Now, the one negative I have with this watch is the thickness of it. As I mentioned, the case is a little bit bigger already with a 41.5 millimeter diameter with the bezel on, and the problem I have is the thickness. It's coming in at 13.2 millimeters, so it's quite tall, and it's going to wear a little chunky, especially because the lug-to-lug is 49 millimeters. So this is a larger watch, but again, dive watches tend to be larger. They're not dress watches. Now, on the plus side, it comes in this really great hard Pelican-style case that can hold 2 watches, and that's a big plus for me. I think that's actually a pretty good value included in the watch. And for the price of almost exactly $1,000 or around $720 US dollars, there's a lot of great value to be found in this watch. My second choice is from Baltic, and I've chosen the MR Classic. Now, the first thing that stands out to me are the large Breguet numerals, and then that standalone subdial that takes up that sort of whole lower left quadrant, and it kind of takes out the 7 and 8 hour markers. Now, when I describe that, it seems like that's going to be off balance on the watch, but in reality, they've done a great job of the layout and the proportions of this watch because it doesn't feel off balance at all. I'm not sure if that's because of the larger crown they've got on the opposite side that sort of weighs out. I'm no expert on this, but for whatever reason, when you look at it, it actually lays out quite nicely. Now, this one comes in a couple different color combinations. Personally, I like this salmon dial, and I like the plain silver with the green strap. Both look great. The blue face is also nice, and I think it would look better with a matching blue strap, but that's an easy fix. Baltic sells straps, or you can get a third-party strap, but don't let that deter you from buying the watch face that you want. In contrast to the Unimatic, this watch has proportions that I think are a little bit better for my personal preference at least. We've got 36mm case diameter with 44mm lug to lug and a 9.9mm thickness, so a little bit smaller overall. And the MR Classic is powered by a Chinese movement, the Hongzhou AL5000A, which is a micro rotor. I couldn't find a lot of information on this movement, and I think that's because it's not in a lot of watches yet. But all the reviews that I did find were positive. I couldn't find any negative reviews on it so far. And the fact that it has a micro rotor and looks as good as it does for the price point that it comes in at, that's pretty impressive. If you have a watch that has this movement or you have any experience with it, please let me know, as I'd love to learn more about it and see if it's actually as good as it seems. I do think it's interesting to see a micro rotor on a watch at this price point, and that price point is about 870 Canadian or $630 US, which is really great value for this watch, as I've been saying. Now, my only complaint about this watch is that it does take inspiration from a lot of other watches and does have that similar style. I think one that it really does look like is the Naoya Series 1, and that's not to say that they necessarily copied them. There are a lot of differences between the Naoya and the MR Classic, but there's definitely some similarities as well. And that being said, Naoya aren't the first brand to make a subdial with seconds that's sort of off to the side like that, and with Breguet numerals. It's very common, so I just think that Baltic have taken some inspiration from other brands here. And as I mentioned before, I like watch brands at this price point when they have their own sort of unique design language. And when you look at Baltic's broader watch portfolio, I do think that they have a unique design language and they've done a great job. So I don't think that they copied necessarily on this one, just taking inspiration from other brands. My final pick is from Fairer, and it's the 36mm three-hand. Very descriptive name that takes a lot of the work off of my plate. Now, the case has similar dimensions to the Baltic, 36mm diameter, a little bit smaller at 41.2mm lug to lug, and a little bit thicker at 10.4mm. There's also a larger version that has a 39.5mm diameter, and there's 3 color variations for the 36mm, and there's 4 color variations for the 39.5mm variation. And oddly enough, both the 36 and the 39.5 come in at exactly the same price point. I actually think that 39.5 and 36 are both great sizes. I don't think you can go wrong with one, but if you have a little bit bigger wrist, obviously go with 39.5. If you're a little bit smaller, go 36. Now, the dial's pretty simple. It's sort of a field watch and pilot watch hybrid, mostly bare apart from the very legible numerals and the minute markers. Now, the black dial has a bit of a different layout. It's got a 369 layout similar to a Rolex Explorer. The second hand has a contrasting color and it has a sort of arrow style tip on it, making it look a little bit more like a GMT hand than a seconds hand. But that's not a problem. As soon as you see the watch move, you can tell it is a second hand. Now, this watch is powered by the La Joux G101 with the soigné finish. Hopefully I've said that correctly, making the movement visually more appealing, as soigné sort of translates a little bit to neat in English. And you can see the soigné finish in the pictures here, and with an open case back, that's going to make the movement a little bit more appealing. Now, this is a top-notch movement used by brands like Anordain, MB&F for their matte editions, and Furlan Mari. It has a much larger power reserve than the other two. I believe they're around 42 hours, and this is 68 hours. And honestly, this is an impressive movement. I think this is one of the best movements that you can get in a watch at this price point. And that does explain why this watch is a little bit more expensive than the others. It comes in at $995 US, or around 1,350 Canadian. So on the Canadian side, it does go over the $1,000, but we'll look at the US dollar on this one because I think it's a great watch, and that extra few $100s is really worth it. And like the other two watches, you can easily swap the strap on this one. They've got a metal bracelet, a NATO, and a leather or rubber strap. And my only complaint, as I mentioned earlier, has to do with the second hand. It just feels a bit out of place, and it's not really my style. For example, on the salmon dial here, you can see that the second hand is red, which clashes a lot with the rest of the colors. And I think a more complementary color like the blue they've used on the rest of the watch and on the hour markers would make it feel a lot more polished and unified. But I think they've done that intentionally to make something that's contrasty and stands out. So that's it. Those are currently my top 3 watches in this price range. If you own any of them or you have thoughts on them, please let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.